All right, let's dive into something really wild. We're about to unpack a story that isn't just a story, it's a trap. It's this piece of narrative architecture so deliberately complex, it's actually designed to pull you in, take you apart, and make you question the very act of reading itself. So, this is our entry point. Right off the bat, we get this declaration from a voice that just pulls the rug out from under you. It's not a character introducing themselves, it's more like a system admitting that it's corrupted from the get-go. So, the first thing you have to ask is, who is speaking to us, right? To even begin to understand this story, we first have to figure out who the storyteller is. Well, the voice belongs to a narrator named Billy Barbeau. But, and this is a huge but, he makes it crystal clear from the start that he's not just telling a story. He calls himself a conscious design, a hyper-creative affliction, and he's laid out this whole manifesto for us. Yeah, this is not your typical narrator. His stated goal is literally to reprogram you, the reader. He thinks of language as a weapon, a tool for what he calls covert psychic warfare. So every sentence is a calculated move. Every metaphor is a landmine. We're being warned that this is not going to be a passive experience. And what's wild is he gives us the roadmap himself. He's not hiding the structure, he's handing us the blueprint for our own deconstruction. He tells us exactly how he's going to peel back the layers of reality, starting with a story, then moving to its traumatic source code, and then, well, ending with us. So we begin with what our narrator calls the pretty lie. And on the surface, it's a pretty dark, supernatural story that's set in this place called the Jam House. The plot seems kind of straightforward at first. We follow a guy named William and his daughter Bug. They find this house that, amplifies music and seems to have a mind of its own. William gets transformed into this cult leader called Deathsong, but then things get weird. The characters start to glitch, and they figure out that their reality is actually a simulation, and that there's a player, someone on the other side of the screen, who's controlling them. And listen to this. This is a quote from Deathsong, talking to one of his new followers. It just perfectly captures the vibe of the Jam House. It's not just a building, it's this active force that literally rewires people, stripping away their old selves to serve this new, much darker purpose. And this is where the first layer just completely collapses. The story doesn't just end, it smashes the fourth wall. The characters, now totally self-aware, turn to face you, the reader, the player, and they plead with you to stop reading. It's a seriously chilling invitation to just ignore their warning and go deeper. And of course, the narrator knows we're not going to stop, so he pulls back the curtain on what he calls the rot beneath. This is the source code for the whole Jam House story. This is the grittier, much more traumatic reality that was underneath everything we just read. So the core idea of this layer is a concept called persistence. Just think of it like this. The person, the consciousness, is gone, but the body just keeps moving on autopilot. It's described as these motor programs just running on old data, a biological machine grinding on without a ghost inside. And right before full persistence kicks in, there's this incredibly dangerous phase, the anger window. It's like the last gasp of the self, where the brain's emotional centers are just on a hair trigger. It's the final, violent signal before the whole system goes dark, and it makes a person unbelievably dangerous. So this second story is William's origin. We see him in this decaying version of Reno, trying to survive in a world where people are degrading into persistence. And here, survival is just brutal. Concepts like love get redefined as surgical violence, like a pact to take out a loved one before their body becomes a mindless threat. Okay, but how do these two worlds actually connect? You have this supernatural tale of music and code, and then this gritty story of neurological decay. Well, our narrator argues they aren't separate at all. One is the direct echo of the other. See, the two Williams are the same man, just trapped in a cycle. That quiet rage his daughter Bug notices in the Jam House, that's the residue of the anger window from Reno. The charisma of Deathsong is just a new way to express the survival instinct he forged in that motel. The William in the Jam House is basically a ghost, a consciousness that rebooted after he died in Reno, but he carried all that trauma with him like corrupted code. So the Jam House didn't create this monster. No, it was more like an activation switch. The music, the power of the house, all it did was give a new frequency to the scream that started all the way back in Reno. The first layer is a direct, if metaphorical, consequence of the second. And that brings us to the final, and frankly, the most terrifying layer. After showing us the story and its traumatic source code, the narrator turns the whole structure on its head and points it directly at us. Which leads to the obvious question, right? Which layer is the real one? Is it the Jam House or is it Reno? The narrator's answer is it's designed to break your brain. He just says, yes. He explains they are both simulations. Both real, both base layers. The nesting, he tells us, just goes up and down forever. And this is the final reveal. The voice that's been guiding us, Billy Barbeau. He's not William. He's a meta-entity. He's a glitch in the system that somehow became self-aware, an observer existing outside all the layers, who's manipulating the narrative just so he can communicate with us. And then he turns his attention directly to us. The final layer of this nested doll isn't another story. It's our own reality. The very act of reading, of processing this narrative, is its own kind of simulation. And that is the final implication. The barrier between you and the text is just gone. By engaging with this weaponized metaphor, by following the narrator all the way down this rabbit hole, you've actually allowed the story's code to infect your own consciousness. You're no longer just an observer. You're now a participant. And we end with this one haunting line from his manifesto. The story suggests that the boundaries we think exist between fiction and reality, between the observer and the observed, they aren't external. We are the barrier. And by choosing to engage, we are also the key that turns the lock, letting the story in. And the question it leaves us with is a big one. Now that it's inside you, what does it do next?